I sat in an unfamiliar law office staring at papers I'd never seen before. The attorney across from me looked sympathetic but confused. Mrs. Hoffman, according to these documents, you're already divorced. The decree was finalized 3 weeks ago. My hands started trembling. I couldn't breathe. That's impossible. I never filed for divorce. He slid the papers across his desk. There it was, my name, my supposed signature, legal stamps, court seals, everything official, everything wrong. I picked up the document with shaking fingers and stared at the signature line, that elegant cursive that was supposed to be mine. "This isn't my signature," I whispered. The attorney leaned forward. "Are you certain?" I looked up at him, my voice stronger now. "I'm absolutely certain. That's not my handwriting. Someone forged this." I drove straight to our house, my house, where my husband Mark was probably having dinner like nothing had happened. I slammed the front door open. He looked up from his laptop, startled. "Elena, what's wrong?" I threw the divorce papers on the table in front of him. "You knew." My voice was shaking with rage. "You let this happen." He didn't even try to deny it, just stared at the papers for a long moment. Then he said the most devastating thing. "It's for the best, Elena. We both know this marriage wasn't working." Not a denial, not an apology, not shock or confusion, just acceptance. He'd known. He'd let someone forge my signature, let someone end our marriage without my knowledge. "You knew," I repeated, my voice cracking. "You let her do this to me." His silence was confirmation enough. My mind raced back to a family dinner 2 weeks earlier. Diane, my mother-in-law, had been unusually cheerful, making comments about fresh starts and moving forward. She touched my arm and said, "Sometimes letting go is the kindest thing we can do for ourselves." I thought she was being philosophical, offering generic life advice. Now I understood. She'd been talking about me, about erasing me from Mark's life, from their family. It had started long before I'd known. The campaign, the manipulation, the planning. Diane had orchestrated this entire fraud, and Mark had let her, maybe even helped her. The woman who'd smiled at me over pot roast had been actively destroying my legal marriage. The betrayal was so deep I could barely process it. But I would, and I would make sure they both pay for what they'd done. I retraced every moment of the past 3 months, looking for when I might have signed something without realizing it. Tax documents, work papers, nothing. I'd signed nothing that could have been divorce papers. I demanded copies of everything from the court. When they arrived, I spread them out on my kitchen table. Every page, every form, every signature. There it was, my name, signed in handwriting that wasn't mine. Similar, yes, but not mine. The loops were wrong, the pressure different. Someone had practiced my signature, studied it, forged it convincingly enough to fool a clerk, but not convincingly enough to fool me. This was fraud. This was identity theft. This was a crime, and I was going to prove it. Every single legal requirement for divorce had been fabricated, including my consent. They'd erased me, legally, without my knowledge, without my permission. I noticed something else on the documents, a notary seal. The papers had been notarized, which meant someone had witnessed the signature, had verified identity, had stamped these lies with official approval. The notary's name was listed clearly, Carla Martinez, Mobile Notary Services. I stared at that name for a long time. I'd never met anyone named Carla Martinez, never hired a notary, never been notarized for any divorce paperwork. This woman was a witness to fraud, maybe a participant, maybe an unknowing victim herself, but she was the key. If I could prove the notary never actually witnessed me signing, the whole case would collapse. The divorce would be invalid. The fraud would be undeniable. I grabbed my phone and started searching. Carla Martinez, mobile notary. There she was. Website, phone number, email address. I had found my first witness, my first piece of evidence, my first step towards justice. Flashbacks kept hitting me. Diane's subtle campaign over the past 2 years, comments about my career taking too much time, suggestions that Mark deserved someone more domestic, positioning herself as the perfect standard I'd never meet. Mark's father worked so hard so I could stay home, she'd say. That's what real partnership looks like. Every family gathering, she'd find ways to criticize my cooking, my clothes, my opinions. Nothing direct enough to fight, just constant erosion, making me feel less than, inadequate, wrong for her son. She hadn't just disliked me, she'd been systematically working to remove me. This forgery wasn't impulsive. It was the culmination of a long campaign, a final solution to what she saw as the Elena problem. She'd decided I didn't belong, and she'd taken it upon herself to erase me from Mark's life, from legal records, from reality itself. I ran into one of Diane's friends at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me. "Oh, Elena, I heard about everything. I'm so sorry it didn't work out." I stared at her confused. "What do you mean?" She shifted her shopping cart outwardly. "The divorce. Diane told us it was finalized last month, that you'd both agreed to move on." My stomach dropped. She'd been telling people for a month? Before the papers were even filed? Before I'd been served? Diane had been spreading the news of my divorce before it legally existed. She'd been so confident in her forgery that she'd announced it publicly, told her friends, her church group, everyone. The humiliation was comprehensive, public, deliberate. She hadn't just wanted me gone, she'd wanted me erased, replaced, forgotten, made into a footnote in Mark's life story. Someone who'd left, moved on, disappeared quietly like I'd never mattered. That night, I sat alone in a hotel room and journaled everything, processed the emotions I'd been holding back. I wasn't just Mark's wife. I'd been a problem to solve, an obstacle to remove, someone who didn't fit Diane's vision for her son's life. So she decided to delete me, with forgery, with fraud, with systematic manipulation of legal systems. They hadn't valued me enough to have an honest conversation, hadn't respected me enough for a real divorce, had just erased me, like I was nothing, like 7 years of marriage meant so little that forging documents was easier than talking to me. I cried for an hour, mourned the marriage I thought I had, grieved the family I'd believed I belonged to. Then I washed my face, drank water, and started planning. Grief was necessary, but so was justice, and I was going to get both. I found Carla Martinez's website. Professional, legitimate, years of reviews. This wasn't a criminal. This was someone who'd been used. I sent her an email, subject, urgent, regarding documents I never signed. I explained briefly, gave her the case number, asked if we could talk. Then I waited. 3 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. "This is Carla Martinez," a cautious voice said. "I got your email. I need to understand something. You're saying you didn't sign those divorce papers I notarized?" My heart pounded. "I'm absolutely saying that, because I've never met you, never hired you, never signed any divorce papers. Someone committed fraud using your services." There was a long silence. Then, "Oh my God, I need to check my records. Can you send me a photo of your driver's license? I keep photos of everyone I notarize." This was my chance, my first real break. I sent the photo immediately. I decided to play one more card before going fully legal. I called Diane, asked if we could talk, woman to woman. She sounded pleased, probably thought I was accepting the situation, going away quietly. I drove to her house. She answered the door with that familiar, condescending smile. "Elena, come in. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this." We sat in her pristine living room. She made tea like we were friends. Then she said it, the words that sealed her fate. "Some people just don't belong in certain families. It's not personal. You're simply not equipped for the life Mark needs." She actually believed she'd done the right thing, that erasing me was justified, necessary, kind even. I smiled, nodded, let her think I agreed, all while my phone recorded every word in my pocket. She thought I'd be too humiliated to fight back, too ashamed to cause a scene. She was catastrophically wrong. I hired an attorney the next day, not the one who'd showed me the papers, someone specialized in fraud, someone who'd fought identity theft cases, someone aggressive. I walked into her office and laid out everything: the forged signature, the notary I'd never met, the husband who'd known, the mother-in-law who'd orchestrated everything, the recordings, the emails I'd found, everything. My attorney smiled, not kindly, coldly, like a predator spotting prey. This is fraud, criminal fraud, and we're going to destroy them. I didn't tell Mark I'd hired an attorney, didn't tell Diane, didn't warn anyone. I just started building my case, collecting evidence, preparing for war. They thought I'd disappear quietly. They were about to learn I'd fight back loudly, legally, comprehensively, with every resource available. Their biggest mistake was underestimating me completely. I needed one more piece: Mark's admission. I invited him to coffee. To talk about logistics, I said. He agreed, probably relieved I wasn't fighting. I wore a wire, legal in our state with one-party consent. We sat across from each other in a quiet cafe. I asked directly, "Did you know about the divorce papers before they were filed?" He hesitated. Then, "Mom said she'd handle the paperwork. It was easier that way. I didn't ask questions." I stared at him. "You let your mother forge my signature?" He looked away. "I thought you'd fight a real divorce. This way was cleaner. Cleaner." He'd chosen forgery over honest conversation, chosen his mother over his wife, chosen easy lies over difficult truth. I had it all on tape: his admission, his complicity, his complete lack of backbone or integrity. Another nail in their coffin, another piece of undeniable evidence. My case was becoming airtight. My attorney issued discovery requests, legal demands for all communication between Mark and Diane about the divorce. They had to comply. Court order. The emails came back worse than I'd imagined. Diane planning every step, Mark agreeing passively, discussing how to handle me, how to make it quick and quiet. Diane suggesting they take care of the paperwork without my involvement, Mark agreeing it was for the best. Every message was manipulation in writing. Every response was complicity documented. They'd created a paper trail of their own fraud, been so confident in their plan that they'd written everything down, discussed it openly through email, never imagining I'd fight back, never thinking I'd demand discovery, never considering consequences. Their arrogance had made my case impossible to defend against. They'd literally documented their own crimes in writing, voluntarily, thoroughly, stupidly. The court summons was delivered to Diane's house on a Tuesday afternoon, right during her weekly bridge club. I didn't arrange the timing. That was just beautiful coincidence. A process server walked up to her door while 4 of her closest friends sat at her dining table. "Diane Hoffman, you've been served. Fraud and identity theft charges. Court data set." He handed her the papers in front of everyone. I heard about it from one of her friends who called me afterward. "Alina, what's happening? Diane said this was all resolved, that you'd moved on." I explained calmly. "Diane forged my signature on divorce papers. I never consented to anything. I'm suing her for fraud." The friend was silent. Then, oh my God, we had no idea. The humiliation Diane had tried to inflict on me had boomeranged back, publicly, dramatically, perfectly. Diane's church group turned cold. The fraud case became public record, searchable online. Her friends started distancing themselves, not answering calls, skipping bridge club. Her reputation crumbled fast. She'd built her entire identity on being the perfect matriarch, the moral authority, the respectable pillar of the community. Now, she was a woman charged with fraud, with forging legal documents, with identity theft. Everything she'd valued most, her social standing, her reputation, her circle, was dissolving. People talked, whispered, judged. She'd been so confident, so arrogant, so certain she could control everything. Now she was isolated, exposed, facing legal consequences she'd never imagined possible. She kept lying, though, told people I was exaggerating, that it was a misunderstanding, that I was being vindictive. But court documents don't lie, and they were public. Mark showed up at my door 3 weeks after the summons, crying, actually crying. "Elena, please, Mom went too far. I admit that, but we can fix this. We can work it out." I stood in the doorway, looking at this man I'd once loved, this man who'd let his mother forge my signature.
"There's nothing to work out." He tried to touch my arm. I stepped back. "Please," he begged. "I made a mistake." I looked him in the eye. "No, you made a choice. Now live with it." I closed the door calmly, locked it, walked away. The sound of him crying on my porch meant nothing. He'd had countless chances to choose me. He'd picked his mother every time. Now she could have her, completely, permanently.
The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Diane sat with her attorney, looking smaller than usual. Mark wasn't there. He'd separated himself from her legally, hoping to avoid consequences. I sat with my attorney, calm and prepared. The prosecutor called Carla Martinez to the stand. She'd agreed to testify, to admit her role, to cooperate fully. Carla looked nervous but determined. "Miss Martinez," the prosecutor began, "did you notarize divorce documents for Elena Hoffman?" Carla nodded. "I notarized documents, yes, but the woman who signed them wasn't Elena Hoffman." She looked directly at Diane. "That woman was present at the notarization. She brought someone claiming to be Elena. I checked ID. It looked legitimate, but it wasn't her." The courtroom went silent. Diane turned pale. I didn't even look at her, just sat quietly, letting the truth speak, like it always does, eventually, inevitably, completely. The prosecutor introduced new evidence, security footage from Carla's office. Grainy, but clear enough. It showed Diane walking in with another woman, someone about my height and build, similar hair color, but clearly not me. The woman signed the papers, Carla notarized them. Diane stood watching, smiling. The smoking gun was undeniable, visual proof of fraud. Diane's attorney tried to argue. The signature looked similar. My client believed it was legitimate. But the prosecutor smiled coldly. "Your client brought an imposter to forge legal documents. That's not a mistake. That's premeditated fraud." The footage played again. Diane escorting the fake Elena, watching her sign, taking the documents afterward. Every frame was evidence. Every second was proof. The forgery had been captured, documented, preserved forever. Justice was finally visible, finally undeniable, finally here. The judge delivered the verdict. "Diane Hoffman, you are found guilty of fraud and perjury in the commission of legal documents. You are sentenced to 1 year probation, 500 hours of community service, and ordered to pay all court costs and damages." The judge paused, looking directly at Diane. "Additionally, the divorce filed fraudulently is declared null and void. The marriage of Mark and Elena Hoffman remains legally intact." Diane's face crumpled. Her attorney tried to speak. The judge held up a hand. "This case represents a serious violation of legal process and personal rights. Forging signatures on divorce documents is not a family matter. It's a crime." I exhaled slowly. It was over. The fraud was punished. My marriage technically still existed. I could now divorce Mark properly, on my terms, with my actual signature, with my actual consent. Control returned. Justice served. Truth victorious. The social fallout was swift and comprehensive. Diane's friends abandoned her completely. Her church asked her to step down from committees. Her bridge club found a new fourth. Mark moved out of her house, claiming he needed space. From queen bee to pariah in 6 weeks. Every reputation she'd built over decades destroyed by one act of arrogance, of cruelty, of fraud. I watched it all from a safe distance, not gloating, not celebrating, just observing. This wasn't revenge. This was consequence. Natural, inevitable, deserved. She tried to erase me. Instead, she'd erased herself, her standing, her relationships, her credibility. Everything she'd valued was gone. Not because I'd taken it, because she'd gambled it all on a crime and lost, completely, publicly, permanently. Justice didn't need my help. It just needed time and documentation and truth. I filed for real divorce 3 months later, with my actual signature, my actual consent, my actual attorney. Mark didn't fight it, probably too ashamed, too aware that any fight would just expose his complicity again. The divorce was finalized in 60 days, clean, legal, legitimate.
This time on my terms. I kept the house, the car, my maiden name, everything I wanted, because I had leverage. I had evidence of fraud. I had recordings of his admission. I had everything. He got nothing but freedom from a marriage he'd destroyed, and the knowledge that everyone knew what he'd done, what his mother had done, what they'd both chosen. That reputation damage was permanent, searchable, forever. Every future partner would Google him, find the fraud case, know exactly what kind of man he was. That was justice beyond court. That was consequence beyond legal. I didn't seek an apology from Diane, didn't want one, didn't need one. Closure doesn't come from the people who hurt you admitting what they did. It comes from accepting what happened and choosing to move forward anyway. I moved into a new apartment downtown, bright, open, mine. No memories of Mark, no traces of Diane. Just my space, my rules, my life. I got a promotion at work 6 months later. Started traveling, dating, rebuilding. The life Diane tried to erase was better now, stronger, freer, more authentically mine. She tried to remove me from existence. Instead, she'd freed me from a family that never valued me, from a husband who never protected me, from a life that was slowly suffocating me. Sometimes the worst thing people do to you becomes the best thing that ever happened. Their cruelty becomes your catalyst. A friend asked me once why I hadn't just accepted the divorce, let it go, moved on without the fight. I thought about it. Because it wasn't about the marriage, I explained. It was about someone thinking they could erase me without consequences, forge my signature, and my legal marriage without my knowledge, and get away with it. I paused. I fought because women get erased all the time, dismissed, silenced, made invisible. This time, there would be consequences, documentation, legal precedent, a public record that says you can't do this, not to me, not to anyone. The friend nodded. You didn't fight for revenge, you fought for principle. I smiled. I fought because the law exists to protect people like me, from people like Diane, and I wanted to make sure it worked. That distinction mattered. Revenge is personal. Justice is universal. 3 years later, I was engaged to someone new, someone who valued me, respected me, chose me consistently. We were at dinner when I got an email from Diane. Subject line, "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long moment. My fiancé noticed. What's wrong? I showed him. My ex-mother-in-law, the one who forged my signature. He raised his eyebrows. Are you going to read it? I thought about it. Then I deleted it without opening it. No, I don't need her apology, don't need her explanation, don't need her closure. That chapter is finished. She doesn't get to write the ending now. I put my phone away, smiled at my fiancé, continued our dinner. Some people don't deserve your attention anymore, don't deserve access to your peace, don't deserve to be heard. Diane had lost that right when she'd forged my signature, lost it permanently, irreversibly, completely. People asked how I'd survived it all, the fraud, the betrayal, the public divorce drama, the court case. I always gave the same answer. I never raised my voice. I just let the truth speak. Truth doesn't need volume, doesn't need drama, doesn't need revenge plots. It just needs documentation, patience, and a legal system that functions. Diane tried to erase me quietly. I responded by making the truth loud, public, documented, official. She thought she could manipulate legal systems without consequences. I proved she couldn't. That was the lesson, the takeaway, the moral. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just making sure the truth gets told, properly, legally, undeniably, and then moving on to build something better. I signed my new marriage license last month with my actual signature, my actual consent, my actual joy. That signature meant everything because it was mine, real, chosen, free. Nobody forged it. Nobody manipulated it. Nobody erased it. Just me. Finally, completely, powerfully.